let's make sure that you know how to get to the vocabulary folder in Schoology. So what we have in front of us right now is an example of our West Shore School District website for you guys, our students. So if you would just get to this site and scroll down to where you see Schoology, and then what I want you to do when you click onto Schoology, you'll find what's over here on the left hand side where it says courses. And when you see courses right here, that's where my little cursor is, you're going to click it. And when you click it, that's when you're going to see all of your different classes pop up. As you remember, my class is the one who I gave you the cool picture of the pufferfish, since that's what we named you at the very beginning of the year. So go ahead and click on the pufferfish. And when you click on the pufferfish, you're going to go in, and this is the page that you're going to see. The reason why you're going to see it is because it's going to open up to the course materials, and that's this page. So that's where you're going to be opening up to. So once you are in with the course materials, all right, you are going to see several things. The CELS PowerPoint, and the next thing you're going to see is the folder for the science vocabulary. Even though you see other folders like the science skills, CELS unit enrichment, extra study material, we're not using that for this particular assignment that I'm discussing. So when you click on the science vocab folder, you're going to come to this page in the materials, and it says science vocab list number 2. And that's what we're going to focus on first, because part 2, even though it's listed there, you can't complete until you do part 1. So let's find out what part 1 is. I have 3 pictures here in a sequence, this being page number 1 back here. So when you open it, you're going to have this as your first page. What I want you to do, and I'm now looking at the second page, I have the cursor over top of this icon, and then it says full screen. I want you to click that page, or excuse me, that icon. And when you click on that icon, it opens up to a whole page. So that's what this one's going to look like as page number 3. And there is these buttons here with a number, and it says zoom out on the left and zoom in on the right. I do want you to zoom out. And the reason why you are zooming out is because it is rather large, and so it's going to be super large font on your screen, and instead of trying to see it across the entire screen, you can make the document smaller for you to look at. Now you are going to have 10 prefixes and their meanings, along with 3 examples of the prefix being used in a word with its root. So Cyto is the only one on your list, on this list, that has a root that could be used as a root word. The reason we are using these prefixes is because we could learn so many different things and try to use our context clues to figure out words if we had these prefixes like memorized or really well known. And I know it's cut off at the top, but unfortunately the only way to learn the vocab is to study it, use it, and memorize it. And that's what we really need you to do. How are we going to do that? We're going to practice. So you are going to have different words that I'm going to ask you to do something specific with. So you can take your prefixes like cyto and endo, and you can make flashcards where you have those, and on a different card you put cell, good, well, or pleasant, inside or within, and you could face them down and away from you and play memory with them. flashcards, as in you put cyto on one side, cell on the other, for you to memorize them. The examples are there very specifically because when you know what the term means ahead of time, then when you come across it in reading, then you have a better understanding of it. Now, we are talking about the cell unit, so these vocabulary terms are going to come in incredibly handy. So we have cytoplasm as one of our vocabulary terms in our book, and it's also an example here. We're soon going to talk about phagocytosis and exocytosis, and we're going to use the top term as endocytosis instead of the one that's there, and ectocytosis in the very near future. We talked about eukaryotic cells and eukaryotes, and so we know that that is a good, so to speak, cell for cells that have nuclei. Endo means inside or within. We talked about endoplasmic reticulums, and you guys had to create a cell with an endoplasmic reticulum inside of it. So what you need to do is study all of these terms. So, what I'm going to do is go to the next page, but you have 10 vocabulary terms that you will see on your own computer screen. Now, part 2 is writing a story using the vocabulary. Part 2, you probably will not get to in the very first week. This is a 2-week assignment. I believe these terms are important enough for you to use, since you will have the opportunity to use them across many different disciplines. I hope that you will see words in your ELA class. I hope that you may see some of these terms in your social studies class, even in your state testing in the spring. So I want you to make sure that you are truly going deep into understanding the prefixes, and eventually we're going to get into a list with suffixes. So in part 2, it says, write a story using the vocabulary. Use one example from each of the vocabulary prefixes and root words. So what that means is you have to use each of the prefixes, because that is what we have in our list above. So each one needs to be used. You may use your own example if you want to. You do not have to. So for example, you can use the term cytoplasm in your story if you want to. If you want to come up with a different term because you know another word that has the prefix cyto, you may. So that means that you're going to then underline just the prefix. You're going to have 10 words total usage, and if you want to go as far as writing a full 1-page story, that's perfectly fine. It can be longer than a paragraph, obviously. And because I'm changing number 5. So the story is a maximum, so not a minimum, but a maximum of the front page. And it can be right here, shorter than a page. All right? So that's one thing that we're going to change. This is the scoring rubric that will be used. It is pretty easy to follow. We have the focus, we have the content, vocabulary, organization, and the style and convections for us to look at. This is something that you have seen before in the past. The third and final part is going to be your quiz. So yes, you need to know this information, and you must apply it in different ways. So, part 1 of the quiz is going to be just matching the word to the definition. That sounds probably pretty easy to you. Part 2 of the quiz is going to show that you have learned the meaning of the vocabulary and not just memorized it. So you're going to have to decipher words that you might not know. In this part of the quiz, you're going to identify definitions of science words that you may not be familiar with. with. And you're going to identify the prefixes and the root words that contain them. And this will help me better understand if you're learning along the way or if you need a little bit more help. If after this video you still have questions, please come and see me, and I will help to make sure that you understand the assignment. Hope you have fun!